The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Jesus read these words from the prophet Isaiah in last week's gospel lesson. They are words of promise and comfort, words of hope and healing. As Claire reminded us last week, they are good news words. Words we are yearning to hear and promises we are ready to see made present in our midst. We are ready to witness the oppressed go free, ready for the Lord's favor to be among us, ready for this good news. And then the good news gets even better, because Jesus not only reads these words as he stands in the synagogue in his hometown of Nazareth, but then he proclaims this: "Today, the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." It's such good news that we hear these words from Jesus last Sunday and then again today at the beginning of the gospel. Today, the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. Jesus is saying that these words are not just words of hope, not just words of promise for the healing and wholeness that will come to all of us at some time. Jesus is saying that because he is here, because God is now with us, because Jesus is who Jesus is, the poor now have good news. The captives are released, the blind see, and the oppressed are free. The time of the Lord's favor is here and now, present and close. Healing and wholeness is not sometime. Healing and wholeness is today. Today, the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. This is not just good news, it is overwhelming news. Light shining in the darkness news. And of course it is, because we're still in the season of Epiphany, the season where the light shines on who Jesus is. So let's remember where the light has shined so far. This season began with the light of a star. We still have it on our banner. So the light of a star leading the Magi to the place where Jesus had been born. So we learned at the beginning of this season that the birth of Jesus is for those in Bethlehem and Nazareth, and for those who are from far away places. Where else has the light shined? What else have we learned about who Jesus is? At Jesus' baptism, we heard these words from the heavens: "You are my son, my beloved. With you I am well pleased." Jesus is God's son. And then a few weeks ago at a wedding in Cana, we heard how he turned water into wine, a sign of the miracles and the transformation to come. And now, in these past 2 weeks, Jesus is back home, back in Nazareth, the Son of God, the now grown man whose birth lit a fire in the sky. And he's reading from the words of the prophets and again revealing who he is. This is what Epiphany is all about, revealing who Jesus is. And here in Nazareth, Jesus reveals that the Spirit of the Lord is upon him, that he is anointed to proclaim good news and release and recovery and freedom and favor. And not only to proclaim them, but to announce that those things have already begun. They are already happening because he is here and because Jesus is who Jesus is. And the magnitude of this news amazes Jesus' family and friends. They're stunned by it, shocked by it, sharing with one another how amazed they are. It's like that feeling anytime you experience light after having been in the dark. The first turning on the light in the morning just after you've woken up. Your eyes have to adjust. You have to reorient yourself to what's around you and how you see it. Epiphany is like turning on the light. Each week we learn something new about who Jesus is. The miracle we greeted at Christmas by the birth of the star becomes a bit more clear, a bit more in focus. And the good news of it all, of who Jesus is, amazes us. Just like the people in Nazareth, we're overwhelmed by it. And maybe that would be enough for this season of Epiphany, to be overwhelmed by the good news of who Jesus is. A season of amazement. But these stories in Epiphany demand more than our awe and wonder. They invite a response. They invite our response. So what is that response? What's the response that follows our awe and wonder? How do we respond to the good news of who Jesus is? Today, Jesus' friends and family in Nazareth give us one example, a response of rage towards Jesus that follows their amazement, anger, stoked by their unmet expectations. Isn't this Joseph's son, they ask? Not quite the image of God with us we might have pictured. The carpenter's son, who we've known his whole life. The one we've sat beside in synagogue from Sabbath to Sabbath, Mary's boy. Surely our hope and our comfort could not have been this close and this familiar. And then Jesus seems to provoke his community further with the stories of Elijah and Elisha, who did not heal or prophesy in their hometowns, implying that Jesus will not heal or perform miracles here in Nazareth. There will be no hometown advantage. God's hope and healing will begin on the margins, where it's least expected. And the people are furious, to the point of violence, driving Jesus out of town and to the edge of a cliff. How dare God show up without their permission? How dare God reveal himself in an image that they did not cast? How dare God presume to say when and where God will act in the world? How dare this Jesus of Nazareth share who he is? After reflecting in that way, perhaps we should pause before we think that we would not join this hometown crowd in their rejection of their hometown prophet. How dare we? We have 4 more Sundays in this Epiphany season. We call it the season after Epiphany, but it's really the Epiphany season. And the light will continue to shine on who Jesus is. Jesus will continue to show us that he is the embodiment of the love that Paul sings about today in the letter to the Corinthians. And we will continue to be amazed and overwhelmed by the good news. The question now is, how will we respond?